Hey, what is going on everybody? It is Rob, aka The Diligent Dev, and welcome back to another video tutorial series. Now, in my last series, we went through how to create a cocktail recipe app utilizing the Ionic Framework, VueJs, and the Cocktail DB, and I will link it in one of the corners right now if you'd like to check that out. But in this series, we're going to be creating a photo sharing app utilizing, again, Ionic Framework, VueJs, and this time Firebase. So we're going to be going a little bit more in depth, tapping into native features like launching the camera and taking a photo, and we're also going to be setting up authentication inside of our application. So without any further ado, let's jump over to the computer and get right into it. Okay, so here we are over at the computer, and what I've done is opened up my browser and navigated to ionicframework.com. Now this is what we're going to be using to create our app. There is a CLI that you can generate it manually, and I'll link a Medium article in the description below where you can go and check out. I show you how to install the CLI and the CLI commands to run to get this exact same setup. But what we're going to do is go down to the Start an App button. We need to give our app a name, so I'm just going to say Photo Sharing App. Let's pick an icon. I'm going to go and search for camera. And we'll go ahead and choose this one right here. We'll choose this like lime green. And then we need to pick a layout. So I'm going to pick the tabs. And then we're going to pick view as our language and hit continue. The next thing it's going to ask you to do is sign up for an account because they're going to go ahead and generate this. And I would suggest you sign up with either GitHub, Bitbucket, or GitLab because it's going to go ahead and create your repo and everything that you're going to need. So I'm going to continue with Bitbucket. And what it's doing right now is generating our app. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here, and I'll be right back when it's done creating it. Okay, so our app has been built successfully, and we've been redirected to this dashboard, and there's a lot of things you can do in here. You can look at the overview of your app, you can look at your commits, your builds, you can set up a deploy process and automate things. There's some settings, and you can upgrade if you choose to do so. Another thing we can do is click on this preview button, and it will take us to our app, and you can see we have our basic app here with our tabs, and it's showing it to us on an iPhone, but you can view it on an Android, and you can also view it on an iPad and an Android tablet. But what we're gonna do is head back, and we need to run some commands here to get this installed. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin this to the side of the screen. We'll make it a little bit bigger here. And I'm going to open up a terminal. And the first thing you're going to need to do if you haven't done so already is install the Ionic CLI and Cordova globally on your machine. After you've done that, go ahead and CD into the desired path you want to put your app in. So I'm going to go just on my desktop, and I'm going to come down here and copy this, git clone command, and go ahead and clone that. And then once that's done, we can go ahead and grab this. And I'm not going to do the Ionic serve, but I will CD into the directory and run npm install. Now this is going to take some time, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and stop the video here. You can go ahead and pause it and let this install, and I will be back as soon as it's done. And now that our commands have run successfully, what I've done is opened the project in Visual Studio Code. Next thing I'm going to do is come up here to the terminal and select new terminal, and I'm going to run the following command, Ionic serve. And what this is going to do is launch our browser and open up the app inside of it. So while that's going on, I'll go ahead and just pin this to the side of the screen. We'll make it a little bit bigger. I will bring over the new browser tab that just opened. I'm going to hit F12 to open DevTools. And now that the DevTools are open, I've automatically selected this toggle device toolbar, which you can do to make it look like this. And I have it set to iPhone 6, 7, and 8. So what I'm going to do is put this over here. And we can see we have our app running and all of our tabs are automatically wired up for us. But before we start coding, what we need to do is go ahead and set up our Firebase project so that we can use the Firebase features inside of our app. To do that, I'm going to open a new browser tab and navigate to firebase.google.com. Then I'm going to go select my account that I want to use. We're going to select Go to Console. We're going to add a new project. We're going to call this photo sharing app tut. Going to click continue. I am not going to enable Google Analytics for this project. And once it's done creating our project, I will be right back. And now that our project's been created successfully, let's go ahead and enable the features that we're going to be using. So the first one is going to be authentication. So here in the left menu, I'm just going to click on authentication. Then I'm going to click get started. And the only thing that we're going to enable is the email and password. So I'm going to click on edit configuration, enable it, and save. The next thing we're going to do is set up our Cloud Firestore. So click on Cloud Firestore in the left menu, then click on Create Database. We're going to start it in production mode and click Next. We'll just choose the default location and click Enable. And now that our Cloud Firestore has been provisioned, what we're going to do is head to this Rules tab. And we're going to change this. As it stands right now, it won't allow anybody to read or write to any document. So instead of that, we're going to come to this line right here, and we're going to say if request.auth does not equal null. And we're going to go ahead and publish these. Now what this is going to do is it's going to lock down our database, but it's not all the rules that we would probably need for a production application. All this is going to do is just allow people that are authenticated to read and write, but it's going to allow anyone that's authenticated to read and write to anything inside of our database. If you're going to release this to production, I would lock these down a little bit more, so you probably want to brush up on your Firestore rules. Then we'll head over to storage. And this is where we're going to be storing our photos, and we see that everything is set up and ready to go. So now we can add Firebase to our project. To do that, we're going to head over to Project Overview up here. We're going to click on this little web icon. We'll give our app a nickname. So I'll just say photo sharing app. Go ahead and register it. And then we get presented with this code. So what we're going to do is inside of this script tag, we're going to copy everything. We're going to head back to our project. We're going to go to src main.ts, and we're going to paste that code in right above our app. Now you'll see we're getting this little red squiggly, can't find Firebase. So what we need to do is open up a new terminal, and we're going to npm I Firebase to install the Firebase package inside of our project. Now that Firebase has been installed, I'm going to scroll to the top here. We're going to import Firebase from Firebase/app. And then below this, we're going to import Firebase/auth. And below that, we're going to import Firebase/Firestore. Then down here at the bottom, underneath our initialization, what we're going to do is we're going to say export const auth equal to firebase.auth. Next, we're going to say export const db equals firebase.firestore. And that way we can export these instances off main.ts that we can use inside of our other files. Last thing I'm going to do is hit Alt-Shift-F to format and go ahead and save this. And we see that we're getting an error, and that's because on this Firebase config, we need to make this a const instead of a var, so ESLint will like it. And now Firebase is all set up and configured inside of our project. Next, let's go ahead and set up our authentication page where users can sign in or up for our app. So what we're going to do is head over to Views. We're going to create a new file. I'm going to call this authentication.view. Inside of here, we're going to make our template tag. And for now, I'm just going to put an H1 in here for a placeholder and just call it auth. We will set up our script tag. We're going to set the language on this equal to TS. And we're going to be using some styles, so I'll just go ahead and set up a style tag as well. Next, I'm going to head over to one of these tabs, and I'm going to go ahead and just copy this out because it's going to give us what we're going to need to set up an Ionic page. So up at the top of the script tag, we'll go ahead and import that. And then we also need to import a lot of other things. The way that I see our authentication page laid out is that we're going to have a card and we're going to have a couple inputs and a few different buttons for users to sign in or sign up. So underneath the content, let's go ahead and just import the Ion card. Let's import Ion card subtitle, Ion card title. We'll also do Ion card content. We'll do an Ion input, Ion button, Ion label, and Ion item. Go ahead and hit Alt-Shift-F to format this so we can see it a little bit better. We're also going to import our Firebase dependencies. So we're going to say import auth and db from main.ts. We will import reactive and 2refs from Vue. And we'll use this to hold our states. And then we're also going to import use router from Vue router. And that way, after people sign up or sign in, we can redirect them to our main tab. Now, I'd like to contain everything inside of this page. So we're going to add an enum so that we can control what we're showing and hiding on the page, determining whether or not a user is signing in or signing up. So I'm going to say enum auth mode. The first one will be sign in, and the second one will be sign up. Next, inside of our export default, we will give this component a name equal to authentication. I'm going to make our components property. And what we'll do is just come up here. We're going to take all of these and just go ahead and paste them in there. And then last, we'll make our setup method. Inside of setup, we will grab an instance of our router. So we'll say const router equals use router. And we'll also set up our state. So we're going to say const state equals reactive. We'll have a name when someone is signing up. We'll always have an email depending on whether or not they're signing in or up. Password. We'll set our mode equal to auth mode.signin. And we'll also set an error message in case we get an error back from Firebase. Underneath our reactive, we will make a new method for when users sign into the app. So we're going to say const sign in with email and password. We're going to set that equal to an arrow function. We're going to pass in an email, and that'll be of type string. We'll also pass in a password of type string. The first thing we're going to do is check to see that someone has passed in an email and a password, because we're going to need both of those pieces of information to sign in the user. So I'm going to say try, and if we don't have an email or we don't have a password, we're just going to set state.error message equal to email and password required. And we'll just go ahead and return out of this method. If we do have a valid email and password, we will say await. And since we are awaiting this, we need to make this an async function. But we will say await auth.signin with email and password. We will pass it the email and the password. And if that is successful, we will do router.push. And we're going to push them to our tabs. So tabs/tab1. Now, if we do get an error, we just want to set state.errorMessage equal to error.message. Next, we'll create our method for users to sign up. So we're going to say const sign up with email and password. We're going to set this equal to an arrow function. It's going to need to be async, and we're going to pass in a name of type string, email, string, and password. String. Hit Alt-Shift-F to format this so we can see it a little bit better. We're going to wrap everything in a try catch, and in the try block, we will say if we don't have a name or an email or a password, we will set state.errorMessage equal to name, email, and password required. And we'll just go ahead and return out of this method. If we do have those, I'm going to say const authres equals await auth dot create user with email and password. We're going to pass in the email and the password. And if we get that back, we're going to make an entry in Firestore in a users collection. So we'll say db.collection. We will reference the users collection. We will set the doc equal to authres dot user. We will put a question mark to check that it's not null, and we will set the UID as the document. And then we'll say dot set, and we're going to pass in the name and email of our user. Scroll down a little bit. If we get past here, we're just going to say router.push, and we'll push to tabs/tab1. And then if we have an error in our catch block, we will say state.errorMessage equals error.message. I'll hit Alt-Shift-F to format that. And then below this method, we'll go ahead and return everything so that our template has access to it. So we'll say return ... for the spread operator, to refs, state, sign in with email and password, sign up with email and password, and then our auth mode. And then down in our style tag, I'm going to go ahead and paste a few styles in here. I will leave them in the description, and there will also be a Bitbucket repo attached to this. I'm just going to go ahead and paste those in. Next, we can start on our template. So what I'm going to do is actually head over to tab 1. I'm going to take everything inside of this Ion page. I'm going to come back to authentication. We're going to scroll up to the template, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste it in there. I'm going to remove everything inside of this Ion content, and we will change our header to authentication. And we'll go ahead and change our tab to sign in/up. Go ahead and save. Next, we will head to our router to index TS. And this top tab here, we're just going to, instead of redirecting to tabs.tab1, let's go ahead and copy this component right here. And we're just going to paste it in right there. And instead of tab1, we'll say authentication. And go ahead and save. And we see that we're getting a lot of errors in here, and that's because we haven't used a lot of the components that we went ahead and registered. So let's head back to authentication. Inside of our Ion content here, we're going to do an Ion card. Inside of this Ion card, we'll do an Ion card header. And inside of this card header, we're going to have an Ion card title. And inside of this card title, we're just going to say welcome to PhotoShare. And we'll have an Ion card subtitle. And inside of this Ion card subtitle, we're just going to say sign in /up. Below the Ion card header, we're going to do an Ion card contents. We'll have a form. On this form, we're going to say @submit to bind to the submit, and we'll do a prevent so it does not reload the page. In here, we will say mode is equal to auth mode dot sign in. And if that's the case, we will do sign in with email and password and pass email and password to it. And if not, we will do sign up with email and password, and we will pass name, email, and password. Gonna hit Alt-Shift-F to format that. Inside of our form, we're going to do an Ion item. For this Ion item, we will do an Ion label, and we will set that to email. And on the Ion label, I'm going to set a position attribute and set it to floating. Underneath that, we'll do an Ion input. And we're going to set the vModel on this to email. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. We're going to paste it below. And what I'm going to do is say password. We're going to give it a vModel of password. And we're also going to give it a type of password. And then actually above our email here, let's paste in another Ion item. We're going to say name. We will say set the vModel equal to name. And on this Ion item, we're going to put a vIf. And we're going to set that equal to mode is equal to auth mode dot sign up. Below our Ion item down here, we're going to do an Ion button. On our button, we're going to set an attribute of expand, and we'll set that equal to block. We're going to set the color equal to primary. We're going to give it a class equal to Ion margin top. And we're going to set the type equal to submit. I'm going to hit Alt-Shift-F to format everything. Looks like I have a little bit of a typo here, so we'll get rid of that. Now for the text on this button, depending on whether the user is signing in or up, we want to display that. So I'm going to do some interpolation. We will say mode is equal to auth mode dot sign in. And if it is, we're going to make the text of this button equal to sign in. And if it's not, we will make it sign up. We're also going to have a button underneath this. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this button. We're going to put it down here. We will also make it expand block. We will make the color secondary. We will keep the Ion margin top, but we will remove the submit. We're actually going to bind to the click events. And we're going to say mode equals mode is equal to auth mode dot sign in. Put a little space here. And if it is, we'll say auth mode dot sign up. And if it isn't, we'll set auth mode sign in. Now for the text, we'll keep it the same. We'll change this to sign up. And if we're already on sign up, we will just say cancel. And the last thing we need to do is set up our display of error messages. So beneath this Ion card content, we'll make another Ion card content. And inside of this, we will just do some interpolation and display error message. Now we're going to only display this if there is an error message. So we'll put a vif on this. And then we're also going to give it a class equal to error message. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And if we come up here and we go to our root path, we see we now have our sign up, sign in page. So let's go ahead and test this a little bit. If we click the sign up, you'll see that we get the name. This changes to sign up. We have the cancel button. If we click the cancel button, we have the sign in with email and password. If we try to just go ahead and sign in, we see we get our error message, sign up. We get the other error message. This is all looking really good. Now let's go ahead and try to sign up. So I'll just say diligent dev, the diligent dev at gmail.com, and give it a password. I'm going to click sign up, and it looks like we've got some sort of an error. So let's go ahead and check our dev tools to see what that is. And if we go over here, we see that there is no path, and that's because we need a backslash for tabs and tab 1. So if we head in here, let's go down to our methods. We have our backslash there, but it looks like I missed it here. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. But if we head over to Firebase, we see that if we click on authentication here, we have our user. If we go to Cloud Firestore, we also have our user inside of here. So it was created successfully. It's just had that little typo on the router push. So if we go ahead and head back here and we type the diligent dev at gmail.com, and I put in the password, and we click sign in, you see now we are taken to our tab 1, which was what we intended to do on sign up, but since there was that error, we were not redirected correctly, but our user was set up in our Firebase authentication and also set up in Firestore, so we are all good to go. And the last thing we're going to do is set up our authentication route guards inside of the Vue router so that unauthorized users can't get to particular pages inside of our application. So to do this, we're going to head to router index.ts. And up here in this imports, we're going to import a few more types. After route raw record or record raw, we're going to import route location normalized and navigation guard next. Then below this, we're going to import auth from main.ts. And then below that, we're going to set up our actual function to guard our route. So we'll say const guard equals to, which is a route location normalized, from, which is also a route location normalized, and then next, which is a navigation guard next. And we'll set that equal to an arrow function. I hit Alt-Shift-F to format this. Inside of here, we're going to do a try catch. And inside the try block, we will say if auth.currentUser, we will allow them to go to the next route. Else, we're going to redirect them back to the login page, which is our /. And then also, if there is an error while trying to do this, we're just going to redirect them to that. And then we need to come to all of our routes that we want to lock down and go ahead and put that guard on them. So on component 1, I'm just going to say before enter, and we'll pass it the guard. And I'm going to do the same thing for each of the tabbed routes. I'm going to go ahead and save. And it looks like somehow my first path got undone. So what it's doing is a constant redirect. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And we're back at the sign in page. So what I'm going to do is say thediligentdev@gmail.com and put in my password. And we're going to sign in, and it has allowed us to go. And if we click on each one of these, we see that we can navigate because now we are authenticated. And that's going to go ahead and wrap up this video tutorial. So we got our app set up and got authentication working correctly inside of it. In the next tutorials in this series, we're going to look at some native features such as the camera and saving photos to Firebase storage. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and enable notifications so you're notified when that next video comes out. If you got any value out of this, I'd also appreciate it if you hit that like button. If you have any comments, questions, concerns about this video, go ahead and drop a line in the comments section below. And until next time, happy coding.